I'm looking at the pigs, and I want to, let's say I am a human, okay? I'm not really a pig in the pigsty. I'm a human on a fence, and I'm just reflecting on my lot in life, that I'm here to feed the pigs, interact with the pigs, look at the pigs, smell the pigs, etc. Listen to them. I'm sick of it, man. I don't want to hear them one more time. I want to go to the city and get a job. So I contact the Holy Spirit in this, and I say, show me, and there's got to be sincerity there. Show me another way to see this. It's not like, give me a better pigsty, let dad or farmer send me to the city for another job or whatever. It's not to get out of this, not to do an adjustment. This is the world. Please extrapolate out and take it out to political situations, economic situations, family situations. It's the same. It's a pigsty we're looking into. We don't like it. We wish it would change. So I make this contact with the Holy Spirit. And because it was a broken-hearted statement, meaning I feel myself pressed, my face pressed against my own bitter world, and I can't get away from it. So I make this contact, and suddenly I receive a poignant truth about the violence I've exerted on the pigsty, on my own self. Suddenly, it's revealed. They're no different than I am. They're digging around in this realm for something to make them happy. I want to go to the city for a job. Is that not just another form of truffle to dig in the slop? Yes, that's what the Holy Instant reveals. Wow, the beauty of the pigsty. They've allowed me to see a clear picture of myself, the pigs. They've allowed me to see a clear picture of who I am. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a pig. And my trip to Starbucks is no different than the pigs enjoying a fresh batch of potato peelings.
Right.
So in that moment, I cry because I was pointing the finger at them and saying, you disgusting animals. And now suddenly, they're my brothers. They're my brothers, and they're showing me something about myself. And in that, I'm brokenhearted again. That's the gift, right? The broken heart is the gift.
This is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Today's reading is from Chapter 20, The Vision of Holiness, and we're reading from Section 3, Sin as an Adjustment. The belief in sin is an adjustment, and an adjustment is a change, a shift in perception, or a belief that what was so before has been made different. Every adjustment is therefore a distortion and calls upon defenses to uphold it against reality. Knowledge requires no adjustments, in fact, is lost if any shift or change is undertaken. For this reduces it at once to mere perception, a way of looking in which certainty is lost and doubt has entered. To this impaired condition are adjustments necessary because it is not true. Who need adjust to truth, which calls on only what he is to understand?
So what is I'm going to play 20 questions. What is knowledge? What is knowledge?
Knowledge
that it doesn't require adjustments. There's, in fact, if you adjust in knowledge, it goes away. So what is knowledge?
Well, knowledge is what we remember when we remember who and what we are. So knowledge is whole. Because the remembrance of who and what we are is knowledge. And all that comes back in that memory is the wholeness that I never left my source, and that it is in constant contact with me and loves us all dearly.
Why does adjustment negate knowledge?
Because adjustment is just a part of this realm, first of all. It's just a part of this realm. It's part of what happens when we take on the meat suit in the virtual reality in which we're in. Because as soon as I do that, I believe in my separate self, and I believe in separate objects. I believe that the sun rises and sets. There's light and dark. There's male and female. There's every kind of what we call opposites. None of that is true in what God is.
Well, in a world that requires adjustment, and we are in a world that requires adjustment. It says it later on. It's not like I'm going to negate adjustment. I'm going to get rid of adjustment.
Right. No, and an adjustment.
So in other words,
is not a negative thing. It's just that based on what this world is that I perceive I'm occupied in, it doesn't. The Course to me always does this thing where it's like it lets you know what is false, and adjustments are what are in a way it's a falsity because I'm making adjustments because I believe I'm a body and I have to keep adjusting in order to survive here.
Okay, I've got a thought. I've got to unload it or I'm going to forget it.
Okay.
We said in the last one, we were talking about the crown of thorns.
Yes.
And I said, what is a crown of thorns? And you basically made a list of attacks and hatreds and whatnot to keep the separation. And I said, well, I'm a contrarian, and I think that really what it is the belief that I can do harm. The belief that I can do harm. I want to carry that subtle statement forward into this idea of adjustment because I live in a world of adjusting. I'm adjusting my position, my health, my diet, my everything, my blink, my eyes. Gee, many Christmas.
Yeah, your pupils open and close, they adjust. Your digestive system is constantly adjusting.
It's a massive, my entire life here from birth to death is a continuum. It's not like there are adjustments. It's a continuum of adjustment.
Yes.
That's what this is. So knowledge, it says that adjustments negate knowledge. That means knowledge has no access.
No.
No, there's a continuum of adjustment here. So what I'm trying to get to is what's the problem? The problem?
It says that right in the end there. It says, to this impaired condition, are adjustments necessary? So it says, in other words, there are adjustments in my thinking, in my perceptual ideas that are necessary in order for me to have access to knowledge. So that's the real adjustments while I'm here.
And this is the problem. I'm going to tell you what the problem is.
Okay.
Is that this world of adjustments, continuous adjustments, when I blink my eyes, when I change my diet, when I notice this or that, or adjust in a relationship, go to a counselor, get things fixed, all this stuff. I invest it with the belief that it's making my life qualitatively better.
Yes.
This is where the error in adjustment is here. This is why knowledge can't come through. If I do adjustments with the understanding that I'm working with symbols of things, symbols that don't bring any qualitative change to my life. If I recognize that my adjustment, let's say
it will feel like qualitative change. Like, let's say you have a headache and you take 2 aspirin and it takes away your headache. But the thing of it is that what you're talking about is the qualitative knowledge of that I'm completely free. Nothing has ever happened to the real me.
We don't have any change. There's no possibility of that. That's grace. That's a descent of the Holy Spirit.
That's right.
We don't have any access to that. We don't have access.
Well, we have
access.
That's a grace.
That's a grace from the Holy Spirit. And it has to do with that thing that's in us.
Right.
But I have no control over that. I can only avail myself of it.
Well, that's the control. That's the willingness.
Now, so what I'm saying is let's say you and I, let's say we start packing on weight, and we're trying to figure out whether it's a thyroid problem or a dietary problem. We start adjusting. So we go to a health counselor, and they say, well, maybe it's a food problem. Maybe you should not eat a dozen donuts a day. So we have these adjustments going on. The problem is that when I'm immersed in that whole environment and I accept it as qualitatively meaningful, the problem isn't going to the counselor. The problem is not eating a dozen donuts a day. The problem is not worrying about my thyroid. The problem is investing it with the belief that there's a qualitative change to my reality by attending to these things. The issue isn't the adjustment per se. It's my investment in what I am adjusting. And it's began with the belief in sin.
Yes.
Is an adjustment. That's the deepest qualitative change that you can make, where you believe you've made a qualitative change. Sin, by definition, is a change in qualities, from bad to good, from good to bad.
Right.
Sin is a boundary between those.
So, okay, I was going to ask you what you meant by qualitatives, and you just kind of answered that. So that's, because I was confused by language, which happens for me.
Because what happens is you go, well, I shift, I adjust because I want to be more comfortable. Okay, freeze frame on that thought. What does sin do? What adjustment does sin do for me? It makes me feel more comfortable in the illusion.
Yeah.
That's what it's for. It adjusts the Son of God so that he can function in the illusion. It's a very necessary adjustment to live in the illusion. The belief in sin is as an adjustment.
Yes. Well, I agree. I don't know if the Son of God adjusts. I cannot know myself as a Son of God.
It doesn't matter. I don't care if you believe. Does that matter? Does that matter just because I say this cup is the ocean? Does that make it the ocean? No. Just because you take the Son of God and you say, it's some worthless piece of stuff. We'll get into the idea that we've created avatars for this game that we're playing, but it doesn't remove the fact that the reality, the trajectory, the end game is the Son of God.
Yes.
That's the end game of this.
Yes, it is.
Right?
Yes. And then this kind of loses its qualities of specialness. Okay.
Paragraph 2.
Yeah.
Adjustments of any kind are of the ego. For it is the ego's fixed belief that all relationships depend upon adjustments to make of them what it would have them be. Direct relationships in which there are no interferences are always seen as dangerous. The ego is the self-appointed mediator of all relationships, making whatever adjustments it deems necessary and interposing them between those who would meet to keep them separate and prevent their union. It is this studied interference that makes it difficult for you to recognize your holy relationship for what it is.
Yeah, so it said there, direct relationships in which there are no interferences are always seen as dangerous. So that interference would mean unification, that I would recognize you as myself. The self is recognized. Once I recognize myself, you're recognized as the self. All of it's myself, that kind of thing. So the ego is going to make sure that I cannot recognize that. It will always want to help maintain the unholy relationship of specialness. Whereas the Holy Spirit, when you ask the Holy Spirit to help me to see, and I want the holy relationship with my brother, things begin to shift so that you have eyes to see, even if in moments, of the other as more like one, with you. That's what my understanding.
So let's play a quick, sort of the quick question. What is it here when there are no adjustments? What do you call that? The Course gives us terminology. What is it when you're making no adjustments?
Well, the ego would call it death.
Okay. What is it really, though?
When you're making no adjustments,
It's the holy instant.
It is. Yeah, because it to me,
The holy instant is an
no
absolute
adjustments
acceptance
mean,
of what is.
yeah, and also there's usually, if I'm making no adjustments, then I have somehow suspended a moment in time, allowing for eternity to be glanced at in an instant. You know what I mean? Because it always brings in a sense of peace and joy. That's what I mean. My understanding is that when you suspend your thought processes of constantly making judgments, which are to me, judgments and adjustments are almost like they're right next to each other. They're like smack next to each other.
Let's go into peace and joy for just a brief minute. If I'm living in a false world, making adjustments to adjust myself to it, and I say, suspend adjustment for a minute. In other words, this relationship, this meal, this physical condition, let it be revealed to me. Let me see it differently. That's the moment when I'm asking for a suspension of my adjustments, so that I'm given the peace and the peace of not adjusting.
Yes.
For just that instant, that holy instant, that miracle is a moment where I'm not actually adjusting.
Yes.
I have this moment of peace, and I'll tell you what, my experience of it more often than not is weeping. My experience of it more often than not is crying. My experience of it more often than not is a humble acceptance that I was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And in a way,
That doesn't feel like joy necessarily. It's not like we're all gleeing, and
no.
it's not like
I mean, we have a lot of language that is, joy is, me on the roller coaster going wee or whatever, that kind of thing. And some people don't do that on the roller coaster, but at any rate, it's that the joy is an overwhelming sense of that. I would say it's almost this overwhelming sense that I've been wrong, and I'm glad I was wrong. It's almost like a gladness. I'm glad I was wrong, because it's way better than what I thought. Usually, it's a perceptual shift that actually brings in something that.
Well, in fact, it lacks nothing. It's not even that it's better.
Yeah.
It lacks nothing.
Right.
And that makes it perfect.
Right, which means there's no adjustments required.
So no matter what situation I'm in, and I want something to adjust, I want them to be different, I want them to be saying something different, I want to feel differently, I want adjustment here. Freeze frame, Holy Spirit, and say, this adjusting is exhausting. This adjusting is an attack on the truth. The truth meaning, I know it's an attack on the truth. I'm just, using the book, it's an attack on the truth because the truth not only doesn't require adjustment negates the truth. So if I'm in a position of restlessness about anything, social issues, political issues, dietary issues, health issues, relational issues, financial issues, deadlines on projects, the condition of the house, whatever thing is in my world, the critters that are digging up my garden, whatever that thing is that is bringing me a lack of ease and a feeling of momentum towards adjusting to fix it somehow. Turn off the TV, go kill the critter, make peace with the critter, give him a plate of food, whatever strategy I use to adjust in this reality, stop. You're at war, man. You're at war. Whether those are peaceful, quote-unquote, peaceful weapons or aggressive weapons, you are at war with reality because you're adjusting. You're trying to adjust your way through this thing to make everything better. And all I can do is reach in to that realm where adjustment not only isn't necessary, it doesn't exist. In fact, if you can stop the adjustment, even with the act, please let me quit adjusting. Let me stop this attack on reality. Make it, reach in. The reaching in is a still point. It's a still point in reality when I reach in with the Holy Spirit for this partnership, holding the hand of Jesus, whatever you choose to call it. When I reach in there and I find that still, that's the operative word, still, because adjustments have stopped.
Yeah.
Then I am exposed to a place where there is nothing lacking.
I agree. And, and then the question usually happens is like, well, then this world, that means I shouldn't do anything. That's usually what comes up for people. So how do you answer about doing in relationship to that stillness spot?
You realize, and we discussed this a little bit, I realize that the situation that I'm in is of a fool among fools, a pig among pigs in our sty. We're all together in this. I don't understand where it started. I don't understand how it ends. In the big picture, okay? I don't understand those endpoints. But you can look at it and say, we're here. And it's not like that pig in the sty or that fool among fools. It's not that the fool becomes wise or that the pig becomes cultured. That doesn't happen.
Animal Farm.
Right. You got Animal Farm. He's wearing the farmer's clothes. No, you just recognize the relative reality, and you cast your eyes to heaven. You put your bid to the Holy Spirit, and you say, let me become a pig in a sty. Let me be a fool among fools that does as much contact with that that reality core as possible. And then, but I've got to go on, right? If the pig quits adjusting, he'll die.
Right. Same.
And if the fool becomes wise, who cares? He's still stuck with a bunch of fools, and his wisdom is relative to the other fools. And so in that room, everyone is really essentially different anyway. There's different levels of foolishness, etc. So what you do is you say, because you were asking, does it mean you do nothing? It means you say, here we are again. Here we are living in this life, doing this thing. And it brings what Trungpa Rinpoche calls a wounded heart. With Don Potter, the fundamentalist singer, it brings, what does he call it? Not devastation. Brokenness.
Yeah.
A broken heart. It breaks your heart. Your heart is broken.
He actually prays that we all have our hearts broken.
The pride that I've got this together, that I have something figured out, that all I have to do is adjust correctly. That pride is the pride of Lucifer standing on top of this saying, I have created my world. That's what that pride is, that I can adjust in this. As Don Potter says, break their hearts, Lord. Break their hearts. Break their hearts. Trungpa Rinpoche would say the same thing. It's the wounded heart. There's a quality of pride, of rigidity, of armoring that I got it right, they got it wrong, and that what ends up happening is I live this life softly.
I agree. I agree that it does. It softens how I move in my world better.
My first reaction,
and also just becoming, as we've talked about many times, how often am I judging and adjusting? Well, a lot. If anybody really pays attention to their thought processes, you'll realize that you're judging and adjusting all the time. So sometimes you judge, and then you judge the judgment, and then you readjust. It's kind of like this thing. Oh, don't have that kind of judgment, Anyway, but anyway, awareness is real key.
If I'm living with that wounded heart, and Trungpa Rinpoche, he covers this material in Shambhala, the Sacred Path of the Warrior. And in there, if I'm living with this wounded heart, or as Don Potter says, a broken heart, where my heart has been broken, when out of that brokenness, and it's a good brokenness, not the bad brokenness, and that's the it's when I'm living in that brokenness, the urge to judge, the urge to be outraged at what I see, the urge to say, can't they get it right? Why do we do it this way? Those impetus, that motive feels like an attack on myself.
Right. I agree.
Because you're living in a gentle and soft way. It doesn't mean you become a complete idiot.
No.
Okay.
We got things to do around here. Okay. Paragraph 3. The holy do not interfere with truth. They are not afraid of it, for it is within the truth they recognize their holiness and rejoice at what they see. They look on it directly without attempting to adjust themselves to it or it to them. And so they see that it was in them, not deciding first where they would have it be. Their looking merely asks a question, and it is what they see that answers them. You make the world and then adjust to it, and it to you. Nor is there any difference between yourself and it in your perception, which made them both. I actually think we could read the next paragraph and complete this whole thought.
A simple question yet remains and needs an answer. Do you like what you've made? A world of murder and attack through which you thread your timid way through constant dangers, alone and frightened, hoping at most that death will wait a little longer before it overtakes you and you disappear. You made this up. It is a picture of what you think you are, of how you see yourself. A murderer is frightened, and those who kill fear death. All these are but the fearful thoughts of those who would adjust themselves to a world made fearful by their adjustments, and they look out in sorrow from what is sad within and see the sadness there.
Yeah, so we began in paragraph 3 where we say that the holy don't interfere with truth. They're not afraid of it, for it was within the truth they recognize their holiness and rejoice at what they see. They look directly without attempting to adjust themselves to it and it to them. And then it says that we need to recognize that the reason why we don't see it that way is a simple question that we need to ask ourselves. Do you like what you have made, a world of murder and attack? So do you want to say anything about that whole murder and attack world?
Well, I do.
Versus the other, kind of, yeah. Well, anyway.
Well, it's asking, the simple question yet remains and needs an answer. Do you like what you've made? Do you like what you've made? Let's put our heads together and ask ourselves that question. Do I like what I've made? Do I like what I've made?
Well, depends on the day now, doesn't it? And a lot of times, sometimes we're like, yeah, it depends on, if you think that, you like your home, you like your friends.
Let's do it this way.
Or whatever.
No, let's do it this way. You're going to die in a few years. Do you like that? You're going to die in a few years. Do you like that? No, you got born and you don't remember it. Mm-hmm. Do you like that? You had a tormented relationship with the people that were closest with you. There were high points, but you sort of don't remember what they were. Mm-hmm. Do you like that? Do you like that you can't remember the good stuff? You can't. Do you remember the last dish of ice cream you ever had that you really, really enjoyed? Do you really remember it? Can you remember it? No, can't remember it. It's not there. But what's there? I'm left with a hunger to recreate a phantom experience. Do you like that? Do you like being driven by phantom experiences? I don't remember that bowl of ice cream. I don't remember being at Ben & Jerry's getting Chunky Monkey. But the thing is, I long for Chunky Monkey. I long for that experience, and I don't remember it. Why am I longing for it if I don't remember it? This is what we're driven by. Do you understand?
Yeah.
I don't understand what makes me do what I do. Do you like that world?
Right.
Do you like that world?
No, that's not a very good world that you just described.
No, and if you go further, but there's some good stuff there, right? Chunky Monkey, even though I don't remember it.
Yeah,
maybe I'm sitting here with it and I'm going, wow, this is really great stuff. I remember it now.
Yeah,
a
soft summer breeze or whatever, that's not too hot. And you're just like, wow, it's a beautiful morning or whatever.
So,
and yet you can't seem to really remember it when any other thing is in front of you, because the now is the only now that there is. So it is kind of odd.
Well, it gives us some
memory.
prompts. Okay. Jesus gives us a few prompts. Do you like what you've made? He doesn't give us much time to think. A world of murder and attack through which you thread your timid way through constant dangers, alone and frightened, hoping at most that death will wait a little longer, etc., etc. So Jesus gives us a prompt.
It says we made it up.
Because he sees it coming. He goes, partial, stupid optimism incoming. I don't want to hear about a warm baby's breath. I don't want to hear about that beautiful bunch of flowers you saw. I don't want to hear about it. That's not the nature of your experience. Those are little anchors that we tie ourselves to and say, ain't it great? That's what we do. This is the nature of the ego. We have to be willing to look at the ego's technique of obliterating the fact that you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going, you're not close to anybody, all these kinds of things. And then you cling to a bunch of flowers. You cling to that nice birthday party that they threw for you.
Yes.
You know? And we cling to those. And that's what makes life, quote unquote,
Or
worthwhile.
the vacation that you finally had.
That's the beauty of being a grandparent.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
if, when it happens or whatever,
Yes.
for real, kind of,
Yeah.
which part of it, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, in other words, we play a shell game with ourselves. And Jesus is saying, quit the shell game business. You know, you actually live with a nervous anxiety that a bomb's going to drop on your house. And that's a fact.
Yeah,
That's a fact.
We have nervous anxieties about going to the dentist, or nervous anxieties
Oh,
about...
no, it's not just the dentist. It's getting a blood clot and dying. You know, it's not just the
I
dentist.
know, but heavy winds coming in, hitting your big windows. I mean, there are so many anxieties that pop up. It's like you'll have good days, and it's like, wow, I've been feeling great and everything else. And then one little thing sips in.
Happiness as we know it here is poor people in Baton Rouge sandbagging against a hurricane. You know, they're just hope it doesn't get into my house. Well, next morning, got in the house, 6 feet deep, everything ruined, mold everywhere. This is the nature of this. I'm not trying to be negative, or let me just blame Jesus. He said it, a world of murder and attack. Because you said earlier, I don't want to run around murdering and attacking people. So what's he talking about? I live in a world where that is possible. In other words, I live on a daily basis. The world of adjustments is, man, it can adjust any which a way. And I don't know which way it's going to adjust. And somebody can adjust me right out of life.
Right. So there's a big protective, so that's the attack and defend moment. There's a big protective thing of this perceived body.
So to get into the idea that life is beautiful and wonderful and all this, and we make the best of it and all that, that's great, okay? Do that in your avatar illusion time, because that's what it is. It's one of the sub-programs of your avatar existence within the game matrix that you have devised. I get a chance to be happy at some of the pinball locations within there as I ping-pong around. Sometimes I score. Sometimes I go to jail.
Right. But as we read on in this and everything, it will show us that as we partner with the Holy Spirit, as we partner with Jesus as friend, that the times of happy perceptions are more frequent, because we're not attempting to judge and adjust and judge and adjust and judge and adjust.
Okay, let's be very, very clear about the happy perceptions. Okay. From whence the happy dream? From whence? From whence?
From where?
Am I generating that? In other words, did I sit down and write the book Utopia, where everyone's happy and butterflies are everywhere and everybody has a sandwich?
No, it's not social justice.
Where does it come from? Where's the happy dream come from then? Why do these perceptions come?
Because I'm letting the Holy Spirit drive my life instead of my ego.
Because you have a broken heart. You saw what you were doing with it. You saw what you were doing with it. Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
I saw what I was doing with it. My heart breaks. Mm-hmm. And now the Holy Spirit can say, yes, broken-hearted one, that broken heart gives me a little bit of room in there to give you another view.
Right.
And it comes into that view, and now, broken, I can say, wow, those pigs are really doing okay in there. You know, in fact, I'm one of them. In the sty. I got the garbage dripping off my nose and the smell. But you know what? It's always been that way, hasn't it? And the only reason I used to hate the pigsty was because I didn't think I was one of them. But now I realize I'm one of them. I'm one of the avatars in the matrix of pigsty.
Yes.
I'm just in it with them. Mm-hmm. And I can see myself in them. And they look at me in that holy light. And they look at me and go, have a potato peel. And I go, that's funny.
Yes.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
I say, that is funny. You know what? This is the best potato peel I ever had.
That's right.
Right?
Right.
It's the Zen moment.
It is. Okay. Paragraph 5. Have you not wondered what the world is really like? how it would look through happy eyes. The world you see is but a judgment on yourself. It is not there at all. Yet judgment lays a sentence on it, justifies it, and makes it real. Such is the world you see, a judgment on yourself and made by you. This sickly picture of yourself is carefully preserved by the ego, whose image it is and which it loves, and placed outside you in the world. And to this world must you adjust as long as you believe this picture is outside and has you at its mercy. This world is merciless, and were it outside you, you should indeed be fearful. Yet it was you who made it merciless. And now, if mercilessness seems to look back at you, it can be corrected. So this is the whole thing about awareness here, because I need to be aware that these judgments that I've sentenced to, if I sentence the world, I sentence myself. Every judgment I lay on the world, I lay on myself. So what you crucify out there, I crucify here.
Sai Baba has a phrase, and I didn't research it. It's just vaguely in my memory, and but it was something like, heart is the door, mind is the key. Turn the key in. In other words, you open the door. Open the door out, and you see nothing but death and destruction. You see a dreadful world. Turn the key and open out. You see death and destruction. Turn the key and open in. Everything's light and love.
Oh,
so
that's a nice one.
There's this difference in movement of if I look out to the world for a justification for anything, I'm missing the fact that I do have access to, and when I say access, I mean I've got this still ocean within. The ocean of Godhead is within me. Now, I'm not saying that you just kind of do the Holy Om and sink in, but it is there as the foundation of my life. And if I look to the outside world, it obliterates that as a possibility of understanding it, as sailing on it peacefully, so to speak.
Right. Well, and also, I mean, the world is going to continue to reflect back my fears and my murderous rage, as the Course likes to say. This constant judgment upon it. It will reflect those judgments back, and I will receive them, because it's basically one of those boomerangs. Throw it out, and it collects that which is like itself and brings it back to you and answers your prayer, basically. So every judgment that I lay upon the world, I will, on my screen of life, will see those very things that I have been afraid of, because I'm reinforcing that screen world. But if I look within, then what appears to be within, and remembering who and what we really are, who I am, then the outward world, if again, even as I'm talking about this, I get sort of this wavy feeling. But at any rate, then the world responds. My reflective world feels softer. Everything feels like it has potential. That it doesn't feel like it will attack me. It feels like it's neutral, and it is neutral because I've taken my judgments and my adjustments off of it for a while, however long that I can do that, and then the world begins to change around that. So again, all of it is we're responsible for turning inward and finding the union with the Holy Spirit, so that this world can change. The perceptual world begins to shift as each and every one of us practice that. Well, that's my understanding.
No, I agree. I guess we had this conversation before, and I mentioned the pigs and the pigsty. The deal is this: I'm looking in on the world, and I use pigs intentionally because pig is sort of one of the uglier, politically correct terms I can use to describe something as me and them. The pig, the groveler in dirt, the base, the what do you call it? Cultureless, disgusting habits kind of a thing. The pig. the pig. Look at how he lives they live like pigs, this kind of thing. And so I'm looking at a pigsty. This is my judgment of the world, right? That's very real, because they do grovel in the dirt and they do eat slop and all this kind of stuff. So what happens is, in the holy instant, I'm in this pigsty, and I recognize in this sense, and let's say I am a human, okay? I'm not really a pig in the pigsty. I'm a human on a fence, and I'm just reflecting on my lot in life, that I'm here to feed the pigs, interact with the pigs, look at the pigs, smell the pigs, etc., listen to them. I'm sick of it, man. I don't want to hear them one more time. I want to go to the city and get a job. So I contact the Holy Spirit in this, and I say, show me, and there's got to be sincerity there, show me another way to see this. It's not like, give me a better pigsty, let dad or farmer send me to the city for another job or whatever. It's not to get out of this, not to do an adjustment. No adjusting, okay? No adjustment. I'm looking at pigs. I make the request to the Holy Spirit. Now, this is the world. Please extrapolate out and take it out to political situations, economic situations, family situations. It's the same. It's a pigsty we're looking into. We don't like it. We wish it would change. And yet we feel stuck with it. So I make this contact with the Holy Spirit. And because it was a broken-hearted statement, meaning I feel myself pressed, my face pressed against my own bitter world, and I can't get away from it. So I make this contact, and suddenly I receive a poignant truth about the violence I've exerted on the pigsty, on my own self. The pigs are just being pigs. And I feel the violence I've exerted on myself. And in the holy instant, suddenly, it's revealed. They're no different than I am.
Right.
They're digging around in this realm for something to make them happy. I want to go to the city for a job. Is that not just another form of truffle to dig in the slop? Yes, that's what the holy instant reveals. You're just digging in the same stuff they are. It's just a different level. And at that level, you go, wow, the beauty of the pigsty. They've allowed me to see a clear picture of myself, the pigs. They've allowed me to see a clear picture of who I am. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a pig. And my trip to Starbucks is no different than the pigs enjoying a fresh batch of potato peelings.
Right.
So in that moment, I cry because I was pointing the finger at them and saying, you disgusting animals. And now suddenly, they're my brothers. They're my brothers, and they're showing me something about myself. And in that, I'm brokenhearted again. That's the gift, right? The broken heart is the gift.
And is that we consider that mercy? Yet it says, yet you have made it merciless, and now, if merciless seems to look back at you, it can be corrected. So that's the correction.
No, that's the correction, and because the thing is, that is how it works. It may be a dumb story, but that's how the thing works.
I agree. That's great.
So should I read 6?
Yeah, go on.
Who in a holy relationship can long remain unholy? The world the holy see is one with them, just as the world the ego looks upon is like itself. The world the holy see is beautiful because they see their innocence in it. They did not tell it what it was. They did not make adjustments to fit their orders. They gently questioned it and whispered, "What are you?" And he who watches over all perception answered, "Take not the judgment of the world as answer to the question, what am I?" The world believes in sin, but the belief that made it as you see it is not outside you. Do you see it's equating, who are you, with what am I? It's equating it.
I know. Great questions.
It's so beautiful. It's flabbergasting, because when you look at those pigs in our lives and you say, who are you? Who are you? And you want to know. You want to know, who are you?
Right. If that's a sincere question, it's a beautiful question.
And then term comes in, they're pigs. They eat slop. They do this. Let them be what they are. It's not the answer. That's the answer. The answer is, what am I?
Right.
What am I? Who are you? What am I? They're reflexive
Yes, absolutely.
Anyway, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And it says that the holy relationship cannot long remain unholy. Because once you start asking those questions, you're asking to know holiness.
Do you realize that when you go through that process with the pigsty, the pigs become your brothers?
Yeah.
They become holy, quite holy.
Yes.
And you see their habits as endearing.
Right.
Because you see yourself in those habits.
Mm-hmm.
It all comes together, friends. It comes together.
It does.
And if you never want to be a pig and you don't want to go through that exercise, you're loving that separation and you're partnering with the ego.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Right?
Yes.
Or is that unfair?
No, I think it's fair. Okay, paragraph 7. Seek not to make the Son of God adjust to his insanity. There is a stranger in him who wandered carelessly into the home of truth and who will wander off. He came without a purpose, but he will not remain before the shining light the Holy Spirit offered, and you accepted. For there the stranger is made homeless, and you are welcome. Ask not this transient stranger, what am I? He's the only thing in all the universe that does not know. Yet it is he you ask, and it is to his answer that you would adjust. This one wild thought, fierce in its arrogance, and yet so tiny and so meaningless, it slips unnoticed through the universe of truth, becomes your guide. To it, you turn to ask the meaning of the universe. And of the one blind thing in all the seeing universe of truth, you ask, how shall I look upon the Son of God?
Do you understand what it's saying?
Yeah.
It's saying, I have identified the ego and its book of rules of how to survive in the illusion. That's what the ego is. It's a rule book for how to survive in this, and it's my counselor and guide for surviving this thing the way it is. It's the only blind spot. It is the only blind spot in the whole thing. I can ask the pigs who I am. I can ask the pigs what is reality. I can ask the barn door what is reality. I can ask the ground under my feet. I can ask my breath. But as soon as I ask my judging mind that knows so many things because it went to zoological school and it knows all about pigs and their habits.
Right. You've dissected them, you've analyzed it,
Yeah.
you've got all the data.
Why should I ask the question? I know what a pig is inside out.
Right.
You know, as soon as I'm there, I've gone to the one blind spot in all of reality for the answer, for the real answer.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. So don't go there. Otherwise, the way you look upon the Son of God, is through that that same judgment that the ego would have laid upon the brother.
Oh, but can you see the addiction to that answer from the ego? The addiction, because it keeps me right. It keeps me comfortable in my world, in my uncomfortable world. It keeps me comfortable in my very uncomfortable perch. You know, but there's an addiction to that answer. Please give me the answer I want.
Well, and we award the experts through all their studies of...
Oh, and that's just to fill in the blanks for my own ego.
Yeah, exactly.
They just volunteer to be your ego.
Yeah, exactly. So then we turn to them, which is another egoic response to the studies with all the judgments and all the data that says, well, it's actually this, without seeing the truth at all. It just becomes... book knowledge.
When my daughter was born, okay, we read the books. This is my prior wife, way long back. This is in 94. And my daughter is, 6 months old or something, or 9 months old or 10. I can't even remember. But there was a moment where we were going to take her out of our room and put her in her own room. You know, out of the proverbial family bed, which, believe me, we got some flack about the family bed thing. You know, got the flack about the nursing, got flack about the family bed, we got flack about infant-led parenting. So I remember we were standing with each other, and we put her in that room. I think we even had a crib or something, I guess. And we put her in the crib. Man, we put her in jail. And all the advice in the books, except for one, Dr. Sears, but in all the books and in all the wise guidance from the people who had 9 children that we knew, that kind of thing, they all said, close the door, let him scream it out. Let him scream it out. It so violated our inner sense, and we both agreed, at what point is it proper and right to declare war on your child? We never did. Knowing that it was against all conventional wisdom. We're not going to declare, it never feels good to fire that shot.
Okay, and so how does this relate to, you asked this, wait.
Conventional wisdom, the voice of experts, the judgment of the ego, will always give you the idea, close the door, lock it, let them scream it out. This is the answer of the ego. It wants to prevent relationship. It wants to prevent you knowing the other. It wants to prevent that other from creeping into you or you creeping into them. This is what that's all about. Close that door, lock it, let them scream it out, and life will go on, and everybody will be happy in their separate spheres. And you will never, ever know what it's like to fall madly in love with that person unconditionally. You won't know. You will always fall in line with the rules of the world. Now, I'm not saying that that was a holy instant or anything. I'm using it as a symbol of the idea, the way that the ego works us, to say, close the door, tolerate the pain that happens for a few minutes, and then that's wisdom.
Right.
That's what we get from the world.
Right.
Now, does that make any sense?
Yes.
Does that sound like I'm back on track?
Yeah. I wanted to make sure we... Okay, that's it.
Paragraph 8. Does one ask judgment of what is totally bereft of judgment? And if you have, would you believe the answer and adjust to it as if it were the truth? The world you look on is the answer that it gave you, and you have given it power to adjust the world to make its answer true. You asked this puff of madness for the meaning of your unholy relationship and adjusted it accordingly to its insane answer. How happy did it make you? Did you meet your brother with joy to bless the Son of God and give him thanks for all the happiness that he held out to you? Did you recognize your brother as the eternal gift of God to you? Did you see the holiness that shone in both you and your brother to bless the other? That is the purpose of your holy relationship. Ask not the means of its attainment, of the one thing that still would have it be unholy. Give it no power to adjust the means and the end.
Okay. Prisoners, bound with heavy chains for years, starved and emaciated, weak and exhausted, and with eyes so long cast down in darkness they remember not the light, do not leap up in joy the instant they are made free. It takes a while for them to understand what freedom is. You groped but feebly in the dust and found your brother's hand, uncertain whether to let it go or take hold on life so long forgotten. Strengthen your hold and raise your eyes unto your strong companion, in whom the meaning of your freedom lies. He seemed to be crucified beside you, and yet his holiness remained untouched and perfect, and with him beside you, you shall this day enter with him to paradise and know the peace of God. So the first one, I thought that you actually covered a lot of this. You asked this puff of madness for the meaning of your unholy relationship and adjusted it according to its insane answer. How happy did it make you? The whole idea of, closing the door on a crying baby and everything else. How happy did it make you to do that? No, it didn't make anybody happy.
No, it doesn't make you happy at all. However, I do want to say this about that is, and there's been a lot of thought on this. This isn't like spurious. I recognize that not everybody is prepared to make every formal shift. Like let's say you're reading Dr. Spock. And I'm talking kid talk now.
Yeah.
Let's say you read Dr. Spock. He says, close the door, lock it. You got a very wise aunt. She says, close the door, lock it. You feel unsure of yourself as a parent. I'm using this as a metaphor, man. I'm not giving family advice.
Right.
So let's say those things happen, and you require the expert, you require these things, and you go with what they say, and you pay whatever those prices are, and you reap whatever benefits. There's a privacy, there's good things, right? There's good stuff, always good and bad. This isn't about forms. It's not about. It's about the content of a situation. So it's not necessarily good to not close the door on the kid. It's not necessarily good to close the door on a kid. We're not talking about that. These are internal movements, and in it, there's always a rub of this and that comes out of it. There's always a question: how happy did it make you? Whatever you did, whatever comes out. The forms, in the end, if I were to say it, it's to divorce ourselves that the form of anything has any meaning. And we're seeking content. And the content has to be in that, at some point, the broken heart, the recognition, I am that. I am this thing that I'm looking at. I'm not separate from this thing. There's no one to blame. There's no situation, no expert to blame, no child to blame, no self to blame about any of those things. Stop the blame. Stop all this and go to the place where it's reinterpreted. It's not about forms. I made mistakes. I should have done this or that differently, whatever it was.
Right. Okay. And in that paragraph before, it's just said, did you see the holiness that's shown in both you and your brother to bless the other? That is the purpose of your holy relationship. It's saying that that's what we'll see in the holy relationship. We'll see the other as a blessing in our lives.
Okay, and let's spend, again, I talked about it with pigs and actually felt it. I can feel it in that, going into it. And if you go into these things, you go into a situation where you hold someone, this is the amazing thing, hold someone, some entity that you have at not arm's length, 10-foot pole length. And there's a complete standoff. I refuse to see myself as them. I refuse to be united with that until that changes. And then what happens then?
Well, in the refusal, you're both crucified. That's the way it works. That so long as you're in the standoff, there'll be no healing. You cannot see the holiness of your brother. But as soon as you say, maybe I've been wrong, maybe I'm wrong because I feel awful. That's usually what happens. You feel awful, or you feel rage, or you feel angry, or you feel upset, whatever. That internal messaging that goes on that says, do you really want to stay like this? Do you really want to stay in that state of mind about that particular idea? At that point, you ask, I want to see it another way. Obviously, I'm upset. Those are the rules of decision. So then it's given the opportunity to show you the holy relationship.
Vignette from the gospel, which is, here we have Jesus crucified. He's nailed to the cross. Jesus nailed to the cross. Now, because we talk about the crucifixion, we're talking about the crucifixion. On the right, that's how they usually show it.
Yeah, on the right.
The right is the thief that says, take yourself down off the cross. That's how they show it. They show the guy on the right saying this usually. Show me your stuff. Show me how good you are. That thief is in me. The thief is in me. Now there's another thief that says, give me your blessing, Holy Son of God.
Right.
The other thief just says, we deserve it. We're here. So all three of these are Jesus Christ, okay? All three of them. And he's having an inner conversation, on the one hand, with the thief that says, show him your stuff, Mr. Big Stuff. And the other one is saying, give me your blessing. In other words, no adjustment. No adjustment. And Jesus says to the one who says no adjustment is necessary, he says, this day you will be with me in paradise.
I know. So, that ending of the paragraph 9, it says, he seemed to be crucified beside you, and yet his holiness remained untouched and perfect. And with him beside you, you shall this day enter with him to paradise and know the peace of God. Yeah, I know. That's exactly the one that I remembered when I read that. So That's a great example.
Well, of course, I don't know how much Helen Schuckman knew about the gospel, or the Bible or anything like that, but she definitely she brings up some
Biblical circumstances.
salient issues around whether it's the crucifixion, the resurrection, or the miraculous nature of the whole thing. She hits some things that can lead to some biblical exegesis.
Yes. And obviously of herself she could do nothing because it just seemed to flow through her.
Okay, paragraph 10. Such is my will for you and your brother, for each of you, for one another, and for himself. Here there is only holiness and joining without limit. For what is heaven but union, direct and perfect, without the veil of fear upon it? Here are we one, looking with perfect gentleness upon each other and on ourselves. Here all thoughts of any separation between us become impossible. You, who were a prisoner in separation, are now made free in paradise. And here would I unite with you, my friend, my brother, and myself. Do you understand? I'm looking at the pigsty as a placeholder for all those things that I judge and think are valueless and moronic and filthy. And I look at them and I ask for this still spot for the Holy Spirit to come in. And I see myself then standing in rigid judgment over the pigs, as though I'm not.
Right.
As though I'm not. And in that moment, the Holy Spirit comes in and says, look at what you're really looking at, and you see yourself. And you just lost all that greatness that you are. You just lost all those wonders. And it's a crumbling effect, where everything is falling off. It's an undoing.
Right.
And now you're left with pigs. And there's one last moment where you go, please don't tell me I'm a pig. And almost before it's out of your mouth, you go, we're no different. I mean, I may stand on 2 legs and they stand on 4, and at that moment, like I said, at that moment, the pig looks at you and says, you finally get it.
Yes. I know.
And you want to hug him.
I know. It's amazing. Which reminds me of an experience I had actually in my more awakened experience about the animals. Animals are just, to me, it was an amazing sense that they live at one with the universe all the time. And when a person awakens, even briefly, they all want to look at you. Like there was all these cows that were in the field or whatever, and you could say, well, they just were looking for a human to feed them or anything. No, there's like, you can sense that they're like, look at that. There's a human that can see us for what we are. And I did. And I saw them for what they are. And they were beautiful. And they were fantastic. And I remember feeling this complete gratitude that they offer their lives, their whole life for us. I mean, every part of a cow is used for humanity, whether it's the leather or the hooves for glue, or if it's the meat for eating, and every part of a cow is practically used to sustain our needs.
I've gone all into that. It's very, very easy to say the cows are a bunch of bodhisattvas.
They are.
They sign up for the worst.
They do, and they're beautiful. They're big brown eyes and everything else. And the other one was when the horses recognized. I was up in Steamboat at the time, and there was a field. There were fields around me, and I don't ever remember horses being there. And that one day there was horses. There was horses there, and it was early morning, and there was kind of a fog over the field and everything else. It was one of those mystical experiences. And 3 horses, a white one, a brown one, and a black one, I think it was. They were literally jumping and dancing in front of me out far enough. And I don't know why I did this, but I totally understood horse language, and I bowed my head to them like this, like in fascination for them. And each one, they lined up one by one behind the other. They came over to the fence, and I was standing on the fence, and I'm usually afraid of horses. And each one went like this and sniffed me. And the next one came up, and the other one came up. And it was like, I was blown.
Little tribal ritual.
Yeah, I was blown away.
Yeah.
They knew I knew them. Right. It was like.
Well, and at that level, you have to, your fear is interesting because then you are subjected to their tribal ritual. And if it's to give you a big snort or a lick up the face or whatever, you gotta, when in Rome, when in horse, do as the horses do.
I know.
You know?
I was amazed. The whole trip was amazing. I was like, wow, that was something else.
Wow.
And I don't think I saw them after that. It was just one of those moments.
Okay.
Anyway, paragraph 11. Your gift unto your brother has given me the certainty our union will be soon. Share then this faith with me and know that it is justified. There is no fear in perfect love because it knows no sin, and it must look on others as on itself. Looking with charity within, what can it fear without? The innocent see safety, and the pure in heart see God within his Son, and look unto the Son to lead them to the Father. And where else would they go but where they will to be? You and your brother now will lead the other to the Father, as surely as God created his Son holy and kept him so. In your brother is the light of God's eternal promise of your immortality. See him as sinless, and there can be no fear in you.
Oh, it's, as I said in the last time, there's no compromise possible. The brother, the more hatred, the more resistance, the more otherness I feel towards any aspect of the sonship, any aspect of the brother, any aspect of the world, that door is just waiting to be opened. Mm-hmm. That door is the door to God. You know, that's just the way it is. Wish it weren't, but that's the way this place is set up.
Yeah.
The worse it is, the more important the door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's, and again, it says, looking with charity within, what can it fear without? The innocent see safety, and the pure in heart see God within his Son, and look unto the Son to lead them to the Father. Because this to me, a lot of it had to do with, where are you going to look for your answers of knowing yourself and your brother? Are you going to look without? Are you going to look on your judgments and your adjustments on the world? Or are you going to look within, with where you can join with the Holy Spirit, join with Jesus as friend, and find the truth? And so it's basically saying that my world that I see outside of myself, I have made, and it will continue to be made in the image of what I think I require or I think I need through my adjustments and judgments. Or I can turn within and I can find the truth and then open my eyes again and see a different world, as I saw those animals different on that day and everything else. It's all still this, all the objects are still there, but my perceptual world, the inner world, now sees the outer world entirely different.
You know, they always, for a while, it hadn't been so much lately, but the nautilus shell, is a graphic illustration of the golden mean. The way the nautilus begins as a small animal and devises a little container for itself, and then it creates another one as it grows and grows, and it creates in a beautiful spiral that involves the golden mean or the golden section or whatever you want to call it. And so that we'll saw through that nautilus shell, and people will say, see the nautilus shell, and we're constantly looking at the shell, and that's how this world is. We're constantly looking at the shell. But when you look at the nautilus itself, I'm guessing, I haven't looked at one lately, I'm saying it probably looks like a slug,
Oh, yeah.
The nautilus itself. Now, I will look at
the living creature that made the shell.
So I look at the shell of the nautilus, and I think, how beautiful, how wonderful, the stupendous nature of all this, how great it is. But the real stupendous part is to look at the nautilus itself, the slug, and feel your revulsion. I don't like you nearly as much as I like your shell.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
You just look like a
Yeah.
a damn snail. I killed a bunch of them in the garden last year. Whatever.
Yes.
So you've got this idea about the slug, the snail. Maybe you could eat it. I wonder if you could eat it. There's this kind of a thing. What can I do with it? But do you see how beautiful it is as an analogy? The jewel and the lotus. In this case, the slug is the jewel, and the nautilus shell is the lotus. In other words, I'm distracted by the external form of things,
Right.
and I'm dumbfounded by it. But when you look at the present reality, it's never what you think it is, and it seems dark and imponderable. You can't get at it, and so you have to go into another level of awareness and relationship with the slug. You have to do a Zen number where you stare at the slug and you just look at it and you say, Holy Spirit, what am I looking at? And you realize this created that. Or did it? What did?
Right.
And in that now moment of bonding with that, you're no longer just staring at the golden mean or the golden section or diagramming against it. You're actually touching the living, unfolding reality that's available all the time to us. And it is just as attractive as a slug for the most part.
Right. Interesting.
Anyway, just a thought.
Just a thought. Well, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks.
I guess
See you
that's
next
it.
time.
See you next time.